Father's Day. Thank you for everything that you do. We love and appreciate you, and we are so glad to celebrate you this weekend.
An empire built on hope, positivity, and millions of devoted followers. Yet, the son groomed to lead it all, quietly walked away, vanishing from the spotlight without a public explanation. What would make someone abandon fame, fortune, and family legacy to live a radically different life? This is the story of Jonathan Osteen, son of Joel Osteen, a man raised to continue a multi-generational ministry, but who chose instead to disappear from the world's largest Protestant church. Behind the smiles and stadium crowds lies a hidden tension that challenges everything you thought you knew about faith, family, and fate. The empty seat at Lakewood. The most striking image from Lakewood Church isn't the sea of 45,000 faces or the dazzling stadium lights. It's the one empty seat at the front row, a quiet space meant for a man many assumed would carry on a religious empire. Jonathan Osteen, son of Joel Osteen, was expected to inherit more than just a church. He was expected to inherit a kingdom. Yet, that kingdom's heir vanished without explanation, leaving a gap both physical and symbolic. This absence has sparked questions few know how to answer. Lakewood isn't just any church. It is the largest Protestant congregation in America, housed in what used to be an NBA basketball arena. Joel Osteen spent over $100 million transforming the space into a religious production powerhouse. Services feel like concerts, sermons like motivational speeches, and the reach extends to over 7 million weekly television viewers worldwide. This isn't simply a ministry. It's a multi-million-dollar brand built on hope and positivity. At the heart of this brand was one family, Joel, his wife Victoria, their daughter Alexandra, and their son Jonathan. Fans and followers assumed Jonathan, the heir apparent, would naturally step into his father's role. Yet the front row's empty seat tells a very different story. Amid flourishing church growth and worldwide fame, Jonathan quietly stepped away from it all. What caused this unexpected withdrawal? The silence surrounding his departure is as loud as the stadium cheers. Even in a church known for optimism, some questions linger unspoken. Why would someone born into such privilege walk away from what appeared to be a guaranteed future? Why did Jonathan disappear from promotional materials and reduce his public appearances to nearly nothing? No press statements were made, no scandals broke. Instead, just a gradual fading into the background that left many wondering what really happened behind those closed doors. This mystery is more than just a family matter. It challenges the foundation of a religious empire built on a simple message: believe and be blessed. Jonathan's absence forces believers and critics alike to wonder if this story is about more than personal choice. It hints at internal conflicts, unshared doubts, or perhaps unseen costs to life under such a spotlight. But the full truth remains carefully guarded, waiting to be carefully uncovered. Among the thousands who pack Lakewood every Sunday, observers couldn't help but notice Jonathan's retreat. His social media presence, once active, went silent. His involvement in services dwindled until it seemed he no longer fit the image of the future pastor. It was a disappearance with no public farewell, no clear explanation, just a growing void that became impossible to ignore. This empty seat raises an unspoken question for the entire congregation and beyond. What happens when the promised successor steps away? For a church so deeply intertwined with one family's story, that simple absence speaks volumes. It signals not just an empty chair, but a silent rupture in the legacy and leadership many thought was secure. The pressures of legacy started long before the empty seat appeared, casting a long shadow over Jonathan's early years. Growing up, Osteen. From his earliest days, Jonathan Osteen's future seemed already written in stone. He appeared in church videos as a toddler, smiled for cameras at charity events, and stood beside his parents during televised sermons. To the outside world, he was the embodiment of the American Christian dream, wealthy yet humble, blessed yet generous. He was born into a family that exerted immense influence, and from the start, everyone expected him to carry the torch. But Jonathan was different from his sister Alexandra, who thrived in the spotlight and already possessed the charisma of a natural preacher. Alexandra seemed tailor-made for the stage, confident, outgoing, embraced by the congregation. Jonathan, on the other hand, was quieter, more introverted. Instead of preaching, he gravitated toward music, spending hours playing piano and honing skills in music production. His talents were real, but they didn't align with the church's path for him. The church needed someone to lead, to preach, to ignite crowds with hope and certainty. The empire needed a successor, a continuation of Joel Osteen's message. But Jonathan's gifts lay elsewhere, in artistry and introspection, not in delivering sermons from the pulpit. This discrepancy created an unspoken tension that followed him through childhood and adolescence. Jonathan maintained some connection with the church. He became a member of Lakewood's worship team, where he played music during church services. He possessed exceptional skills, which he used to help others, yet he stayed in the background instead of becoming a church leader. The church reduced his public presence because people saw his unwillingness to participate. Jonathan gradually stopped appearing in public events, while his social media profiles became inactive. The sudden silence added to the growing speculation. Was he resisting, retreating, or simply redefining his place within a family empire? The situation remains unclear because people experience both rising expectations and actual circumstances. Jonathan struggled with his identity, which the public wanted him to embody while he stayed in the entertainment industry. His creative spirit led him towards music, while he needed to fulfill his duties as both a preacher and the heir to his family. The early indicators revealed a direction which would eventually lead to a substantial breakaway from the church traditions. That quiet departure was just the beginning of a much deeper transformation. A different path emerges. Jonathan Osteen's journey took a turn few expected, driven by his personal passions rather than family expectations. While his sister Alexandra embraced preaching and carried the family message forward, Jonathan found solace in music. Not the worship anthems expected of a pastor's son, but ambient, instrumental compositions that offered space for reflection rather than proclamation. This choice spoke volumes about the distance growing between him and the church's public identity. By 2013, when succession plans typically become formalized, Jonathan began to retreat more noticeably. His Instagram posts became scarce. Appearances at Lakewood grew irregular, and his photos were removed from the church website. There was no scandal, no announcement, just a gradual fading away. In a community built on stories and public faith, silence from the heir apparent was striking. Rumors circulated to fill the void. Some suggested Jonathan lost his faith entirely, that he rejected his father's teachings. Others whispered of disputes over money, theology, or lifestyle choices. Critics speculated he challenged the prosperity gospel that Joel Osteen preached, and that this caused friction within the family and church leadership. But these accounts missed the quiet truth behind Jonathan's choices. Sources close to the family describe Jonathan not as angry or rebellious, but as deeply thoughtful, someone wrestling with difficult questions. If faith guarantees wealth, why do so many believers remain poor? If positive thinking is key to success, why does suffering persist among the faithful? These troubling questions went beyond surface-level optimism and challenged the church's core message. The gap between scripture and Sunday preaching, which reached tens of thousands of viewers, became Jonathan's main struggle. The more complex situation made him uncomfortable because he found the simple belief system of "believe and be blessed" too easy to understand. The organization needed to protect its message because it depended on that message as its main product, which actual testing of that message could create dangerous situations for its employees and its brand. He realized that his quest for perfection required him to spend excessive amounts of money. Joel faced a dual challenge which included constant public scrutiny and the need to maintain perfect performance at all times while concealing his true feelings behind his public persona. Jonathan observed his father trying to achieve an impossible goal, which involved living a life that needed to be inspected constantly to read his actual thoughts about life through his buying and choosing activities. The question lingered: was this truly the life God wanted for him? The decision to take a different route became more than a rebellious act because it enabled him to pursue his true identity. Jonathan used his time away from his family responsibilities to discover his faith and personal interests through his family heritage. The music he released several years later showed his search for peace and purpose away from the stadium crowds who attended his performances and the organized religious events which followed. Jonathan left the pulpit because he wanted to remain faithful to his beliefs. He defined his belief system through his own personal process, which produced both a discovery of self and a withdrawal from the empire. The story continues to unfold in ways that challenge everything known about legacy, belief, and the cost of empire. Questions behind the message. Jonathan Osteen's growing distance wasn't simply about personal preference. It was rooted in deep questions that unsettled the foundation of Lakewood Church's message. At the core was a tension between the prosperity gospel preached by his father and the realities Jonathan observed beyond the stadium walls. If faith guarantees blessing and wealth, why were so many faithful people still struggling? These questions cut to the heart of belief and challenged the simplistic "believe and be blessed" doctrine. Sources close to Jonathan describe him as someone not rejecting faith, but wrestling with difficult truths. He wasn't a rebellious son acting out or a skeptic dismissing spirituality. Instead, he engaged seriously with Scripture and noticed gaps between biblical teachings and the messages dominating Sunday services. His reflections included asking where sacrifice fit in a gospel focused largely on abundance. He wondered what role the cross truly played when hardship seemed glossed over. These questions, however, were uncomfortable for church leadership. In a religious empire built not just on faith, but on a successful brand, questioning the core message threatened more than just theological ideas. It threatened the business model. Millions of dollars and a global audience depended on a consistent, uplifting narrative. Jonathan's doubts could not easily be voiced without risking the image the church had crafted so carefully. Jonathan understood that his father paid an enormous personal price to maintain the empire's stability, which went beyond the established doctrines. People examined Joel Osteen's every step because his opponents attacked both his financial resources and his genuine intentions. The public performance demanded of Jonathan restricted his ability to show personal difficulties and to experience authentic transformation. Jonathan chose to fight his battle through inner silence, which he found to be more powerful than public arguments or significant public disputes. Jonathan doubted himself because he could not live up to his religion's teachings while still holding his own beliefs. The internal battle reached its final stage, which made it impossible for him to proceed along the traditional route. He achieved success, but his actual situation no longer matched the successful image that people had of him. Jonathan faced an internal conflict between his personal beliefs and what his family expected from him, which led him to rethink all aspects of his life. Can someone truly dedicate themselves to religious service while operating a business that profits from selling unyielding optimism? His questions increased in complexity, while his answers pushed him further into isolation. People go to a hidden place, which most people will never experience. The area behind the performance stage. Jonathan's inquiries reached beyond abstract thought because they showed his personal beliefs. His personal beliefs about faith were altered through their exploration of his identity and essential values. Jonathan's prosperity gospel doubts represented a common discomfort that people experience with the movement, yet his family connection to leadership obligations made his case more intense. The decision to diverge wasn't just a rejection, but a search for peace beyond the bright lights and empty seats. Choosing peace over power. Jonathan Osteen's eventual departure from Lakewood Church marked a turning point, not just for him, but for the legacy built around the Osteen family name. In 2019, he quietly began releasing music, not gospel, not Christian worship, but ambient electronic compositions that expressed mood and atmosphere rather than sermons or calls to faith. This artistic pivot reflected a man seeking meaning and healing through creativity outside of the church's public narrative. His music, often instrumental and contemplative, carries no explicit religious message. Titles like Stillness, The Long Way Home, and Letting Go hint at a personal journey of reflection and release. Music critics who encountered these works without knowing the backstory praised them as evocative soundscapes capturing the essence of peace after turmoil. It was a stark contrast to the loud, high-energy services he had grown up around. In 2021, Jonathan made another significant statement by marrying away from the spotlight. Unlike a grand ceremony at Lakewood, with thousands watching or his father officiating, Jonathan's wedding was intimate and private, held in California far from the empire's public eye. Photos eventually emerged showing a genuine happiness and freedom that seemed absent in the years he spent under public expectation. Rather than abandoning faith entirely, Jonathan chose to live it on his own terms. He didn't join another church or challenge his father's ministry publicly. Instead, he quietly volunteered in causes the church itself had been criticized for neglecting: homeless outreach, environmental efforts, and mental health awareness. His life became a testament to practical, often unseen service rather than public preaching or grand declarations. The contrast between father and son could not be more striking. Joel Osteen remains a figure of massive influence, preaching prosperity and abundance from a $10 million mansion-filled stadium every Sunday. Jonathan left behind guaranteed success and fame to serve people experiencing poverty and mental illness while living modestly in Los Angeles. One built an empire on faith equaling victory. The other sought faith as a quiet source of strength in everyday struggles. In 2022, an anonymous essay titled "The Sound of Leaving" appeared in a literary magazine, widely believed to be Jonathan's own reflections. The author described watching his father speak to thousands with a polished message that left little room for complexity or doubt. He admitted a hunger for truth, authenticity, and the freedom to explore faith's many questions without guarding a brand. This essay illuminated the deeper reasons behind Jonathan's withdrawal. In 2023, when a reporter approached Jonathan in Los Angeles for an interview about his father and Lakewood Church, Jonathan's response was measured and calm. He expressed respect for his father, but made clear the ministry and its story were separate from his own. He simply wanted to create music and live quietly, without promoting or selling anything. The moment captured a profound boundary between legacy and personal peace. Life beyond the spotlight poses a different kind of challenge, but also the possibility of genuine freedom. What Jonathan's story means today. Jonathan Osteen's departure from Lakewood Church raises profound questions about legacy, faith, and personal identity. Joel Osteen, now in his early 60s, continues to preach to packed stadiums every Sunday. The sprawling empire built over decades still thrives under his leadership, with millions tuning in globally. Meanwhile, Alexandra Osteen, Jonathan's sister, has stepped up as a prominent voice in the church, preaching regularly and carrying forward the family brand. Yet Jonathan's empty seat in the front row is a silent reminder that the legacy isn't seamless. What happens to a church so closely tied to one personality when that person's heir chooses a different path? For an empire built on a simple message, believe and be blessed, Jonathan's departure challenges the certainty and continuity of that vision. It signals that beneath the polished sermons and stadium lights, there are questions and struggles that don't fit easily into the brand's narrative. This gap between image and reality invites a broader reflection on what it means to lead and to believe. Jonathan's choice to prioritize peace over power also highlights the tension between public influence and private authenticity. While Joel Osteen embraces a high-profile role with all its pressures, Jonathan sought a quieter, more personal faith. His recent music releases, modest lifestyle in Los Angeles, and volunteer work with marginalized communities show a faith lived out away from cameras and crowds. This contrast offers a powerful example of how faith can take many forms beyond tradition and expectation. The Son Who Walked Away story created a situation where people debate and speculate about its events. Some people view Jonathan as a spoiled child who lost his family fortune because he turned down a gift. Others see him as courageous for rejecting a simplified gospel and seeking depth. The truth exists between two extremes because Jonathan showed his father respect, but needed to find his own way. His experiences demonstrate that people need to develop their own methods to connect with faith and their family heritage. Jonathan's story appeals to people who fight against their family expectations because they search for genuine self-expression. The message reaches people who doubt their assigned responsibilities because they want to discover their true path. Some people acquire greater faith through their journey of walking away from their religious beliefs. Jonathan's life creates a space for discussion about how people can believe in God while they experience doubts, and about how people need to make brave choices to find their inner peace. Jonathan Osteen's journey shows us that the path of faith isn't always straight or simple. Sometimes it means stepping away to find your own truth and peace. If you found this story thought-provoking, please like the video and subscribe for more deep dives into stories you won't find anywhere else. Thanks for watching.